the kind of question like everybody wants to know in wine is okay, how do we have any appeal to like Gen Z and millennials, right? So I kind of grew up with anime. I kind of grew up with manga. I know how popular it is, particularly with that demographic. So I kind of just had this idea of, okay, well, I know it's popular already. I don't have to kind of do all this kind of teaching and kind of, try really hard to kind of build a relationship. So it's a little bit of using what people already like to kind of get them in the door. And then once I get you in the door, I kind of talk about wine basically.
Welcome to another episode of the Italian Wine Podcast, the Next Generation series, where we aim to answer one simple question. What are the new generations up to when it comes to wine and food? My name is Karla Ravagnolo. Join me as we dive into the latest trends in Italian wine. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Italian Wine Podcast. My name is Karla Ravagnolo. I'll be your host for this episode of the Next Generation series. So today I'm pleased and very much excited to welcome Striker Reese. He is the founder of Anime and Wine Club, which we're gonna discuss in a few moments. So welcome, Striker. Tell us, where do you come from? Where are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit more.
Okay, so I come from Columbia, South Carolina, actually. I moved to DC not too long ago, where I kind of got into wine there, and I've been everywhere in wine. I've worked at a wine marketing agency where I kind of got to market wine from kind of all over the world, like New Zealand, France. We've had wine in Virginia. I've got to market wine for the city, actually. The city of Philadelphia had this like wine program, and I got to market for them as well. Where I'm at now is actually a place called Cellar South, and they make wine cellars for like private clients and restaurant groups, and I kind of handle the marketing for them. Right before I kind of started, my own thing with this whole anime and wine thing.
Got it. But I know you majored in marketing. Am I correct?
Management, actually. I got my master's in management from the Catholic University of America. So management and marketing, they kind of interrelated. It's all kind of dealing with people and structures and processes. So it actually kind of helps me.
So my question is, from this type of major, how did you end up in wine?
So funny enough, it was a podcast. Can't forget her name, but she was a marketer and she talked about wine. And I just kind of fell in love with how challenging it sounded. Like when you go into a wine store, it's typically thousands of bottles like kind of in front of you. So it's a real challenge to make one of them kind of stand out, essentially because they all kind of look the same. So I kind of fell in love with the challenge of marketing wine before I actually fell in love with the product of wine.
So if you have to share your first thoughts and like your first reaction to wine labels and marketing and storytelling, what was the first thing that you noticed?
That it's from my angle, it's a little boring. It's a little boring because it's so steeped in kind of tradition, which is fine, but it's nothing kind of new about it. So my whole thing is I'm trying to make it a little bit new, but my first thoughts were the wording, the copywriting, even the marketing. It's very bland. So
What do you remember to be the most challenging part about, oh, also even like finding courses or more on the educational side, like about learning wine?
so from the educational side, it's not very practical. Sometimes there's a focus on knowledge that I don't think actually helps sell wine. It just kind of helps teach you about the wine, but not to sell it. There's a lot of in courses, a lot of parts of the wine courses have nothing to do with how to make a better, product that lends itself to consumers. So it'll be stuff like, oh, this grape variety grows this way, and this grows this way over here, and this is the special method that we use to grow this kind of wine. And I say, that's great, but how does it actually help sell wine? It's great for people like me that kind of love the grapes and love the science behind it, but it doesn't help sell it. And I think that's sometimes what a lot of the courses miss is the consumer side of it. how that looks and the best ways that we can sell to, actual consumers of wine.
You also have experience in retail. What do you think is actually the information that consumers look forward when trying to decide which wine to buy? Or in your experience, like what was your technique, your best practice in order to sell the bottles that you wanted to sell?
So it's definitely how it pairs with food first. That's kind of the way they initially kind of want to know. And then the foods need to be practical. Sometimes with like very fancy wine, they'll say, this pairs well with this dish, and you're like, the average person doesn't eat this kind of dish. So what you're pairing it with doesn't have any connection. Not some like super fancy dessert, some, dish that someone hasn't heard of. Like how does it practice with, burgers, pizza, sandwiches, cookies, like things like that, things the average person actually eats more of is something I would really love to see embraced by wine, like the practicality of the drink.
I feel like that's extremely important, the practicality, also because we are so used to hearing extremely, I don't want to say like fine dining type of things, but at the same time, I mentioned this already a couple times. It's hard when a producer, for example, from Italy mentions something like, my wine pairs perfectly with some pigeon ragu ravioli. And I'm just like, nobody in New York City or South Carolina would have that type of like um, that type of recipe and that type of ingredients in their area. So you have to like cater and be sure that you offer a suggestion that people can actually replicate. Which is, I think, it's also one of the problems or one of the reasons why people think that wine may be a little snobbish and unapproachable. Because like many times we suggest pairings that are kind of hard for people, so that's why I understand when they say, "Oh, I'm scared about, doing the wrong pairing with for the wine."
Yeah, and it's funny because I got a lot of that in retail. When someone would come into the store, they would be like afraid to ask me a question, and I would say, why? Like, what's the why are you afraid? And it'll be that they think that I know more than them, which I do on wine, but I don't take that to mean that I'm smarter than them on the subject. It's just I know more of it. So, it's really about kind of building a customer relationship to kind of get them to even open up about wine in the first place.
Yeah, totally, totally. It's not that is all that there is also a sense of competition, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to share their honest opinion and feelings and thoughts maybe about the wine. Like you have to be knowledgeable and that's it. Do you think that in general there is a lack of sense of community in the wine industry?
Definitely. And that's probably because wine kind of travels that luxury sense. So luxury and culture sometimes have a hard time mixing because luxury is all about kind of gatekeeping. It's all about exclusivity, but culture and community are all about inclusivity. So those two things can kind of disagree with each other. So it's about trying to find kind of the middle ground, right? Like how do you make something luxurious but also make it feel like everybody's welcome while also maintaining a sense of, I have this and you don't have this. Those ideas are kind of all conflicting with each other. So it's difficult, but it's possible. It's possible to get there. It's possible to build community around something that still feels exclusive but inclusive at the same time.
I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like I feel like the book bar formula that you mentioned to me in our previous conversation, it's one of the perfect formulas that managed to, give you that feeling of exclusivity in a way because like it's a book or something, but there's still the wine part, so like the sharing moment, but it's also, a sense of community because people gather together. They're not in front of a computer, they're not in front of a screen or something. Like they gather to a place and share a moment and enjoy a moment together.
Yes, yes. So it's the book bar thing is books are kind of communal in general, Like when people kind of read them, they want to talk about it, they want to be together. So pairing that with alcohol kind of works perfectly, and that's why they're becoming more popular. It's not the kind of overstimulated kind of high energy kind of you're all on top of each other like a regular bar. It's a little more spaced out. You can kind of relax. You can kind of talk with people at your own pace. So that's why I really love the kind of book bar, concept.
Totally, totally. So, actually, focusing on your project, anime and wine, would you like to tell us a little bit more about it and how did you get the idea?
Yeah, so the kind of question like everybody wants to know in wine is okay, how do we have any appeal to like Gen Z and millennials, right? So I kind of grew up with anime. I kind of grew up with manga. I know how popular it is, particularly with that demographic. So I kind of just had this idea of, okay, well, I know it's popular already. I don't have to kind of do all this kind of teaching and kind of, try really hard to kind of build a relationship. So it's a little bit of using what people already like to kind of get them in the door. And then once I get you in the door, I kind of talk about wine basically. My idea behind it was okay, I'm just going to do it. It's odd. I know the concept is odd. It's out there, but people really love anime. And that kind of passion is what I want in wine. So that's what I'm hoping to do, kind of, interconnect those two things and then kind of tell a story through it.
I really like the idea also because anime and manga can become somewhat of a tool to wine and vice versa. Wine can also become a tool to enjoy together anime and manga. What I really like about this project also is the sense of community that we were just talking because it's a community. You mentioned at the beginning, like in our previous conversation, you mentioned it's a community for outcasters in a way because we talked also about the fact that many Black people uh, are not seen when it comes to wine consumption and also to anime fandom. So I really feel like also your project pushes the boundaries in some of the, I don't want to say most conservative industry, but at the same time Japan and anime are known for being somewhat conservative. There's a lot of gatekeeping again, also in this industry, and same for the wine industry. Have you had any type of experience about it?
Yeah, so sometimes they'll ask me what it is and I'll explain it to them, and I can kind of instantly see their face kind of scrunch up when they see the graphics because they associate the kind of imagery with cartoons. So it's a very Western idea that cartoons equal kids, but that kind of thinking doesn't really exist other places because they know cartoons and animation is just a medium. So it's just another storytelling method. But here, particularly in the West, it's very, if I see a cartoon, it's for kids. And of course, if it's for kids, alcohol has to stay far away from it naturally. So it's a little bit of trying to break down those barriers, trying to get people to understand that, cartoons, animation, it's a storytelling medium and it can be for adults just as much as children, teens, or whatever.
Yeah, no, I totally disagree with whoever says that
Yeah,
anime
yeah,
is not for kids. You better watch something
yeah,
like Cowboy Bebop and then tell me if that if that anime
yeah,
is for kids or something. On another topic, on another hand, I also want to touch quickly on your drawings because Striker also draws his own drawings, his own graphics to the for Instagram and for his website and for his educational sketches and blogs. There is one specifically that I love that is the one where he explains cork stain. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about it?
yeah. So cork taint, of course, if you're into wine, you already know what that is. But as a concept, it would be pretty boring for someone who's not into wine to understand or even care what cork taint is. So I basically took it and I made him a literal monster in this comic, and the monster's kind of terrorizing the city and terrorizing the city because, quarantine, of course, terrorizes the wine, right? So I'm taking a story element and I'm kind of making it a visual and funny. Some people may hear it and may think that means I'm taking it less serious, but I'm not. From my point of view, everything's better if you can kind of laugh, right? So just make it in something that's kind of humorous and making it laugh helps to teach it a lot easier. People will remember it now. So that's kind of my thing, taking an element of it, making it humorous, and then making it a visual in order to teach you about it.
I love the fact that there's that emotional connection or relation, like I laugh about the cork stain, but then I remember about the cork stain basically, and I remember the image. So it's also easier for visual learners. I feel like this is a great strategy to study and to learn and to connect with wine. So another question I have for you is, how wine is somewhat very schematic, meaning that there is red wine, white wine, sparkling, and there's the subcategories. I don't know, like sweet wine, fortified wine, whatever. Is it possible to create somewhat of an association with anime categories? And if yes, how?
Yeah, so definitely. There are categories in anime. So it's like shonen. Sometimes there are romance animes. There's mecha animes. Mecha animes being like the animes that talk about like big robots and everything's like that. So they each have their own unique kind of storytelling avenue, and some people like some, and some people don't like others. So it's really kind of up to me to kind of put those two things together. Like I'll say shonen is like off dry wine because shonen anime is like the entry point of anime. It's the entry point that it's the most popular series are usually the shonen, the more action heavy, the more, beat 'em up style of anime. So I'll say that and I'll connect it to something like off dry wine because it's the entry point for most people. It's the most approachable part of wine. So I'll kind of use that to kind of create these threads that connect it so you can learn a little bit more about both and kind of build community around finding these two odd things that do mix. You just got to find, the mixing point basically.
Interesting. If I may, this is an additional question. I'm sorry, this is kind of a freestyle. But do you remember your first anime and your first bottle of wine?
I do both actually. First one is of course Dragon Ball Z. That is, one of the most popular anime in the entire world. That was probably my first anime. First wine, it was this, I don't want to say the name, but it was a really terrible cab. And I remember drinking it, and I remember just instantly having this feeling of, this is terrible. Like, why do people like wine, right? Like, this is awful. But I remember yeah, I remember having that opinion because, and of course, I didn't learn till later that cabs can be like really good when they're like aged right and things like that. But this was like this cheap grocery store cab that was just awful. Yeah, so I remember it. I remember it vividly actually because I remember tasting a good cab like years later and going like, this is, if I would have tasted this first, I probably would have liked wine like a lot sooner.
How does it look like the wine consumption in South Carolina among younger consumers? Are people actually into wine?
They are. It's funny. They like it low, like low alcohol, white wines seem to be like the trend that I'm noticing, and it makes sense, right? Because so many people are drinking a little less. They want alcohol that's kind of low in, low in alcohol, smooth. It can kind of go with their dish. It's not like overwhelming. So that's the trend I'm noticing. Things that are easy to drink, they can kind of drink it and kind of go on about their day, not be too overwhelmed, not be too drunk or anything like that. That's the trend I'm noticing.
Interesting. If you had to think about what is the wine industry biggest misconception about younger consumers, what would that be?
Definitely that the younger consumers don't want luxury. Every time this, I see this often. When they want to appeal to Gen Z or millennials, the first thing they do is they kind of get rid of all the luxury branding, and they, and they make it kind of like, bright colors, slang, things like that, and it just kind of wipes out the luxury part. And I've seen consistently in spaces with younger people, they want the luxury. Like, they want the fancy words, they want the lingo, they want all of that. They just want it where they feel like they're included in it. And I feel like that's the part that wine just kind of misses. It's kind of the phrase throwing the baby out with the bathwater is a phrase. You don't have to get rid of it all. You just have to change parts of it.
Do you think that also this inclusivity should be somewhat improved throughout communication and educational, especially like in social media or something?
Yeah, definitely. So with wine branding, it's a lot of pictures of grapes, pictures of vineyards, the same kind of person kind of everywhere. And that appeals more to wine people. Like, I get why you would like the color of that grape, but you have to think, to an average consumer, they're all purple, green grapes. Like, it's no difference to the average consumer. So you have to make the difference by building your communication around things that are different, right? Like events where you can see people actually drinking the wine, not the stock photography where it's like the models and they're all kind of drinking the wine. Like, no, show me real people drinking the wine. Show them, reading a book, reading a comic book. Like, it starts with the visuals. You have to really show how wine can be different.
I feel like wine has all the characteristics in order to win over the younger consumer. We just need to figure out how to communicate it better, to be like, hey, you can grab this bottle, and no matter if you know what Cabernet Sauvignon is, no matter if you know where, I don't know, Burgundy is, you can just like drink it, have fun, open it with some fries or a burger or something, and that's it. You can just like have a moment to decompress.
Yeah, so a good example that I've told people is to look at how coffee shops are kind of evolving. Coffee shops are going from just selling you coffee to like third spaces. So now you go into a coffee shop, they want you to sit down, they want you to linger, they want you to kind of build a community around it. So the coffee shops I have, community events kind of weekly. And I know coffee shop owners now, they're telling me where they're not even making most of their money on the coffee anymore. It's the merch, it's the events because they're turning from just a coffee shop into like a third space. So that's the direction I want to see wine kind of evolve in and kind of go more towards building, community around the product.
Yeah, I totally also because I feel like I never heard anybody saying like, "Oh, this coffee tastes like this, and that." They just appreciate the coffee, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. We don't wanna like overwork our brain or over that. I think we're here to have fun and enjoy life. I think this is the sense.
Yeah.
Another question I have for you, since I asked you what is the biggest misconception about young people, I want to ask you the reverse question. What is the biggest misconception young people have about wine or the wine industry?
Probably that there's no one to really understand them. I see this a lot in the wine store, right? Like, I'll go into a wine store and they'll kind of look around and they'll never assume that I'm the one working in the wine store because, I'm a little younger, because I'm black. So they assume automatically that it's like the older white guy. He's the one that's working in the wine. He's the one that kind of knows about the wine. And, there'll be times where people will say, well, you can ask him. He knows about it. And you'll see their face kind of perk up because, okay, now I have someone here that looks a little bit more like me. I can kind of speak to them in more, layman's terms. I can kind of talk to them a little better. I can kind of relate to them a little bit better. So it's usually that there's just no voices out there, but there are plenty out there.
I love how both in the wine industry, so like retail, hospitality, restaurants, bars, etc., but also in anime, I'm slowly seeing more and more Black people represented, which I find it's extremely interesting. How do you see this evolve, or how have you witnessed this evolve in the past years?
Yeah, so what I think it is I think as like something like anime is becoming kind of more popular, more a little Americanized, so to speak. You're having more diverse audiences find it, and then naturally a business is going to go more towards what's working, right? So they're starting to kind of pick up on the fact that more diverse audiences are liking this thing. You have people like Megan Thee Stallion, Michael B. Jordan, these huge actors that also love anime. So it's really opening the door for other people to see that, okay, I can look at this and I can be fine with it. I can interact with it because, a thing with people of color that sometimes, you know, we have this mind of kind of all for one kind of thing. So if we like it, feel like we have to have approval within our community to really engage in something. So now that we're seeing people in our community like it more, you're going to see more people kind of want to be involved in it, basically.
Got it. One last question before we end this interview. What is your favorite comfort food, wine, and anime pairing? Like the one, your safe place. When you get home, you're just like, I want to have this moment for myself now.
Okay, so this is recent, but I've really started loving like brick oven pizza. I think it's a texture thing. I think it's, like the pizza here from like fast food chains can be like really doughy and chewy, and I don't like that. So brick oven pizzas they're kind of hard, but it's a texture thing, and I love to drink it with like a Riesling. I think yeah, I think they complement each other pretty well as I've gotten older.
I have to ask you, what is your topping, your go-to topping on the pizza? Because like that changes a lot.
I like a savory kind of meat on top of it. Something like a pepperoni or like a sausage or like an Italian sausage or something like something that kind of interacts with like the pasta sauce really well. I feel like it goes really well for like that touch of sweetness and Riesling. So those two things, the anime I would probably pair it with. There's one called Tenchi Muyo, Daughter of Darkness, that I really like. Tenchi Muyo is kind of a funny story, and
What is it about?
Tenchi Muyo is about this story where this guy who's basically, it's kind of a funny story. He's surrounded by these kind of like aliens kind of people. Um, so it's funny. He's also in high school, so he's basically just trying to figure out life. Meanwhile, these aliens are kind of around. They kind of get into hijinks with each other, and of course, it's anime, so like the aliens are attractive women because that's a story element in a lot of anime. So it's kind of funny. It's it's a funny little odd story that I like. I think it's more of a comfort anime for me because I discovered Tenchi Muyo when I was like 9 years old. So it's that thing yeah, it's that thing I'll kind of watch when, I don't want to feel like picking up watching a new show.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Sounds lovely. Sounds like a great night. I'm not gonna lie. And I may start it. Like, I may start. Is it on Netflix or something?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. A lot of the older movies are actually on YouTube too because they're just kind of, I guess they're so old that, there's no copyright claims on them. You can actually find a lot of great anime on YouTube, like the older ones in particular.
In general, are you more of a, I don't want to say traditional because I feel like that's not the right word, but like In terms of like wine and anime, do you prefer the older style, the older animes and wines, or are you more into like experimenting, new styles, innovation?
Yeah. I kind of prefer the new ones a little bit because what I feel like is happening is that the newer ones have more of a budget because anime is more popular now, so you can tell they're putting a lot of resources behind it. If you watch some of those older ones, like the dubbing, if you watch the dub, it's bad because there wasn't a lot of resources at the time because anime was this really underground thing. Like I tell people, I love the new show Dan to Dan. Like I love that show because it's so odd and it's so far out there. That I love that kind of weird storytelling and like bright colors and great fight scenes. Like I love that. So I probably would lean more into like the newer stuff actually.
Got it. May I dare to ask you if you had to associate a wine to Dan? A lot of people have mentioned it to me, so I feel like it's very popular right now. If you had to like pair one wine with that show, what would your pairing be?
I would probably say champagne. I say champagne. I say it because a lot of people don't know, but we all know, of course, like champagne is usually a mix of, three different grapes. So, and I feel like Dandadan is a mix of a lot of different genres, kind of all into one to kind of create this cohesive story. So I would pair that with champagne because champagne is a mix of, usually three different grapes and kind of one cohesive product. So that's how I would kind of pair it. And I love when you can take like different grapes and kind of pair them together. You can kind of get hints and notes of all three grapes in the product. So I really love that. I really love the science behind it. Like when a winemaker can take all these different grapes and kind of put his stamp on it, and you can kind of get different notes, and it's really lively. And I kind of like that mix.
I just love the pairing and the association you did. I feel like this is extremely genius. You make it sound very easy because you're knowledgeable about both worlds. But for example, I don't know what Dan is about. But like as soon as you mentioned champagne, I'm just like, oh, okay. And like as you went on with the reasoning, I was just like, this makes a lot of sense. Like I kind of got already the idea of what Dan is about and the style and everything. So I really wish you the best of luck with this project. I know that Anime and Wine Club also hosts events. So, what are these events about? What do people do?
So how I like to do it is to basically make it an informal kind of hangout. I feel like wine tastings can be really formal and kind of stuffy. So I kind of invite people out. I'll give them like slips of paper where I show you visually like what we may be talking about. I'll play music, I'll put on anime, and I'll just encourage people to just kind of bring their friends and just hang out, like super informal, very low key, a vibe kind of deal. And that's how I like to do my events. Like I want you to feel something just as much as I'm teaching you something.
Got it. Are they usually themed based?
Yeah, so I'll take a wine and I'll make a theme around it that connects to the anime. So just to kind of teach you about the anime and the wine aspect. So I do that basically so I can invite both unique audiences. So I tell people you don't even have to like anime, you don't even have to like wine. You can just kind of come there and just kind of soak in what's happening, basically.
I really wish you the best of luck with this project. If people are in South Carolina, everywhere actually, the world, follow him.
Yeah, you can find me on animeandwine.com, on Instagram at animeandwine. So you can find me there. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's just my first name, Striker Reese. Oh, I do have this thing on the website where you can kind of email me. Like if you know any great wines, just kind of email me because I'm always on the lookout for like really great kind of underrated wines. So if you know any, like send them to me.
So thank you so much, Striker, for this lovely interview and conversation. I hope to see you soon in person and to join you for some pairing and some anime shows. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know your thoughts on our social media at Italian Wine Podcast and follow us to keep up with the next generation of Italian wine people. Cheers!